Here are your names. Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Pink.
Why am I Mr. Pink?
Who cares what your name is?
Yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're Mr. White. You have a cool-sounding name.
Let's go to work.
Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got the feeling that something ain't right.
What happens if the manager won't give you the diamonds?
Cut off one of his fingers. The little one.
I'm so scared in case I fall over the chair. And I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs.
If they hadn't done what I told them not to do, they'd still be alive.
It's so hard to keep the smile from my face. I'm all over the place.
You're acting like a first-year thief. I'm acting like a professional.
And your friend, they all come running, slap you on the back and say,
Choice between doing 10 years. They can have some stupid motherfucker. Ain't no choice at all.
Bam!
Bam, 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 bam.
You're under arrest, sugar.
Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Chris Penn, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Tierney, and Michael Madsen. They're the Reservoir Dogs.
Hey, Joe, want me to shoot this guy?
Welcome to the Mad Dad Movie Review, a podcast full of first-time movie reviews starring Mads and her dad.
I'm Mads.
And I'm the dad, and this is Mad Dad Movie Review. So, Madilyn.
Yes.
I just want to start this off at the top of the hour, the top of the podcast in this case. The other day, we lost, unexpectedly, actor Chadwick Boseman at the young age of 43. And to think just the career that he had ahead of him, and just the career he had in the short time he was, with us. Like, this is a guy who basically started it off as Floyd Little in The Express. He went on to play Jackie Robinson, 42. He was James Brown on Get On Up. And then after that, he just took on the role that would define his career as the Black Panther. And
Starring in Marvel.
yeah, it's very unfortunate, very sad, and we just both the two of us wanted to send our sincerest condolences to his friends and family at this time. So, rest easy, King. Wakanda forever.
It was an accident. You know, man, blood. Accident. I forgive you. You hear that? I forgive you. You know, man, blood. Come on. Come on. Al, come on. I forgive you. God is love. Love is God. Come on. You got me now. You got me good. Ain't no thing. I know you, blood. I died for you, blood.
All right. So how you been, dude?
I'm good.
Good. All right. So I'm gonna remind everyone that they can find our Let's start that again. You can find our archives at iTunes, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Breaker, or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. You can reach us on Facebook at Mad Dad Movie Review, Instagram at Mad Dad Movie Review,
And we are now on Twitter.
and now Twitter, not at Mad Dad Movie Review.
Mad Dad Movie Pod.
Exactly. Thanks, Twitter, and your character limit. Or you can simply email us, maddadmoviereview@gmail.com. And a shout out to all of our Australian, UK, Germany, Indonesia, Philippines, and Ireland listeners. Don't think I haven't noticed you. So, this week we watched 1992's Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's first full-length feature film, Madilyn's first foray into Quentin Tarantino. Let's just, well, before I do this, or jump into the nitty-gritty, let me ask you, how is, we'll get to that. All right. Nitty-gritty.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
All right, so Reservoir Dogs premiered January 21st, 1992 at the Sundance Film Festival in Utah. It was released nationwide October 23rd, 1992 by Miramax Films. It opened up in 15th. Also released that weekend. Some of these were released. Some of them were actually in release. We got Under Siege, Last of the Mohicans, Candyman, The Mighty Ducks, and Dr. Giggles. Opening weekend gross of just shy under 148,000. Total gross ended up making 2.8 million, with a budget of 1.2 to 3 million. This was directed by Quentin Tarantino, produced by Lawrence Bender, written for the screen by Quentin Tarantino, edited by Sally Menke, cinematography by Andre Sakula, starring Harvey Keitel as Mr. White, Tim Roth as Mr. Orange, Michael Madsen as Mr. Blonde, Chris Penn as Nice Guy Eddie, Steve Buscemi as Mr. Pink, Lawrence Tierney as Joe, Edward Bunker as Mr. Blue, and Quentin Tarantino himself as Mr. Brown. Madilyn, first impressions.
I liked it, but I didn't like the beginning where it just cut off to them, like it was them talking, and I just didn't like that. I don't know. It was funny. It was a funny scene, but.
All right. Why don't you put a pin on that? We're going to talk about that opening scene in the diner in a little bit more detail coming up. I actually had that in my talking points, so we will cover that. So just overall, more or less, this guy has potential.
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't watch it again unless I wanted to realize something or talk about it again.
How about this? What if I said to you, hey, next thing, it's not obviously, we already have our schedule ahead of us, but what if I said, our next film is Pulp Fiction? What would you say to that? Would you be willing? That's Tarantino's next film in his filmography. The next film he did 2 years later was Pulp Fiction.
It depends on what the movie's about, I think.
To tell you what Pulp Fiction is about, I don't even know where to begin. But we're not going to get into that right now. No, we're not. No. Okay, so it's we're on the fence with you. That's your take on the film. Why do I love this film? Well, I love it because it was the start of a new era in film, dubbed the Tarantino era. I love it because I still love Mr. Pink's bullshit excuse for not tipping. I love it because of K. Billy's super sound of the 70s weekend. I love it because you're not gonna die. Say the goddamn words. I love it because of Clowns to the Left of Me and Jokers to the Right. I love this movie because of Steve Buscemi. I love it because of that goofy sound Harvey Keitel makes when he finds out about Mr. Orange. Shit. I love it because of Larry, stop pointing that gun at my dad. I love it because I love looking back on the track for a little green bag. And that is why I love this film. What do the critics think? Let's go to the critics' corner. And before I get into what all the critics had to say, it's worth noting that Reservoir Dogs is regarded as an important and influential milestone of independent filmmaking, hence the start of the Tarantino era. I mean, this film, this was big. This was kind of big in a big way. Like, the numbers don't show that. The numbers don't back that statement up. But we will get into that momentarily. Rotten Tomatoes score is at 92% based on 71 reviews. It has a Metascore of 79 out of 24 reviews. Letterboxd score of 4.1 out of 5. Empire Magazine names it the greatest independent film ever made. Vincent Canby from the New York Times enjoyed the cast and the usage of nonlinear storytelling. He similarly complimented Tarantino's directing and liked the fact that he did not often use close-up shots in this. Did you notice that? There's not a single close-up shot in this movie. Not that that's something you're looking for. I mean, your first time, I guess you're not gonna. Kenneth Turan of the LA Times also enjoyed the film. He said the acting, particularly that of Buscemi, Tierney, and Madsen. He said Tarantino's palpable enthusiasm, his unapologetic passion for what he's created, reinvigorates this venerable plot, and mayhem aside, makes it involving for longer than you might suspect. James Bernardin, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, so it's James B, okay? James B. I don't even know where you know what? Forget what he said, because I don't even have it written down where he's from. So, Roger Ebert. Let's see what Raj had to say. He felt the script could have been better, and he said the film, it feels like it's going to be terrific, but Tarantino's script doesn't have much curiosity about the characters. He said Quentin Tarantino has an idea and trusts the idea to drive the plot. He gave it 2.5 stars and said the acting was the best part of the film. And that wraps up this episode's Critics Corner. All right. Do you have any questions for me about this movie?
No, I don't think I did.
Not a question?
That I wrote down, at least.
All right.
Maybe
fair.
in my head, but it got answered.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, then. Let's just... Basically, for this episode, what I did is I have a bunch of talking points. Basically, they are the major things to talk about when talking about this film. So let's just start from the top, and that's the opening diner scene. It's worth noting that the scene was actually added. It was only added to give Mr. Blue some lines because he didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
If it weren't for that scene, Mr. Blue would just be basically just a name.
Why was there a Mr. Blue if he wasn't really in it?
I mean, it's a 5-man team.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they go into detail, later on.
Yeah.
We'll get into that too. Also, this was originally scripted for Mr. White being the non-tipper. This was back when Quentin Tarantino himself was originally going to be Mr. Pink. And yeah, so when that changed, it went to Pink himself, Quentin. Oh, I'm sorry, not Quentin, Buscemi. I've always looked at this scene as a preview for the rest of the film, with its attitude and original dialogue. It's filled with like the pop culture and references and the realism of it. It's just something. It's so the movie starts with all the guys plus nice guy Eddie and Joe. Basically, they're all having dinner before, or not dinner. They're having breakfast before the heist. Literally kicking off the movie talking about Madonna's Like a Virgin, amongst other things. And yeah, going off of what you said earlier, it's not something you'd expect, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. This is this. I don't want to word this. Because I know, like, you know, Tarantino's going to be messing with time, as he does with basically all
It's
his
like
films.
all of a sudden they were happy and then it went from serious. It's like,
Yeah, it
they were
goes.
like, what? It confuses you at first. You just have to understand though.
Yeah, because you're going to do a movie basically about if you didn't know any better what this film is about, the first thing you're
like,
seeing
wait,
and hearing
what?
is like just talk, and it's like, what? And
It's like,
1992, the general public, the GP in '92, they weren't used to films like this because these films weren't really a thing. I mean, movies had a tendency to kick off with a bang, more or less.
But they tell you the story, like what happened throughout the movie, because that's what the movie's about. It's really like finding out how did this all happen. Like how is Mr. Orange bleeding all of a sudden? Why is everyone freaking out? And then they tell you as it goes on.
Right. I wrote this down because I never knew I never knew this. I found this note pretty interesting. This scene also displays each character's personality. Meaning, so go with this, okay? Joe, he's shown as, you know, the old guy. He's old and he struggles to remember a single name, which is Toby. This displays his inability to figure out the rat in the group later on in the movie. Eddie, he talks about the night the lights went out in Georgia and how he never realized the singer is the killer. This tells us he ain't that bright. He's not smart. Cause that's nice guy Eddie. He's loud and he's like got this big bark, but like in the end, I mean, I don't know. I've never really. He is kind of like the dummy of the group. Him in his blue tracksuit. Mr. White, he takes Joe's book and threatens to keep it. It's done in humor, but Joe is still the boss, which tells us they must be close. Mr. Orange, he rats Pink out to Joe about not tipping. That's simple foreshadowing right there. Mr. Blonde, he offers to shoot Mr. White, then pretends to with his fingers. That signals that means he's trigger happy. And then Mr. Pink doesn't believe in tipping. He's got very stern rules he runs his life by. He claims he's a professional. He does this when others aren't living up to what he thinks the rules are for thieves.
And he is a professional at his job.
Exactly.
I mean, he got out. I mean, no, everyone died but him, so.
I mean, he literally says, you know, you're acting like a first-time thief. I'm acting like a professional.
Because he understands that someone ratted them out, and the other person, they're like, no, nothing happened. Like, what are you talking about? They came after an alarm, and he's like, no, I saw with my own eyes. They did not. They were there hiding this whole time.
Yep.
So.
Exactly. So that's.
Nobody's looking, but he looks around to make sure nothing's going to happen. Nothing bad happens.
Exactly.
He's being a smart criminal.
And he is. He definitely is. So the music, that's my next talking point. So anything else you want to talk about with the diner scene? Nothing else you want to bring up? I know it's not your favorite scene. So, all right. You know, and it's worth noting.
It's just something to make the movie longer. And
No. I mean, there's a reason for it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in there. I mean, Quentin's not going to bullshit you with his movies. I mean, he uses every scene. There's a purpose for every particular scene. Hell, every word of dialogue there's a purpose for in his movies. So then let's get to the next thing, and that's the music of this movie. Now, music, it's always been a main character in all of Tarantino's films. That's how I've always viewed it as. I mean, this is the same man who used David Bowie's Cat People in a spaghetti western, and it worked. So, yeah. Songs in this film, we got Coconut by Harry Nilsson. We got Little Green Bag by the George Baker Selection. We got the cover of Magic Carpet Ride by Bedlam. We got Blue Sweets, Hooked on a Feeling. We got Joe Texas, I Gotcha. And we've got Steelers Wheels, Stuck in the Middle with You. There's no score in this movie. Mm-hmm. It's all the K-Billy sounds of the 70s weekend, hosted by comedian Stephen Wright, who a lot of people listening I don't expect to know. Half-Baked, guys. He was the guy on the couch. The music. So, jump in at any point of this, and do you have anything to say about, the music?
I like the music. I didn't know any of the songs, but
I thought you said you knew one song. That sounded familiar to you.
I just looked it up. I think it was the same. They sounded the same. I think because it was from Finding Nemo.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned Finding Nemo. That's right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Finding Nemo might have been inspired by the one song, but
no,
they've definitely. No. I've looked back at it and it's different lyrics, but same beat and paste.
Well, I guess I should apologize to the listeners for the inclusion of Finding Nemo in a Reservoir Dogs podcast. Things you don't hear every day. All right, well then. Hell, if you got nothing else to say about the music, I mean, there's nothing else I can really say that'll educate you about it. I mean, it's a pretty cut and dry thing. It's simple.
Music.
Well, that's how you look at it. I mean, I was around for that.
And not like a lot.
It's not 90s music. It's not 90s music. It's 70s music. And because the majority of his that's the thing about.
I wasn't born in the 70s, so.
Well, neither was I, but that's beside the point. I'm just saying, this is the thing. Like Tarantino's music and all of his movies are like this. I mean, future films, he's going to have a composer. He's going to have an actual score, but. Shout out to The Hateful Eight, my favorite score of 2015. Just. Ennio's score is it's something that I still listen to from time to time, so it's good stuff. So that's off topic a little bit. Their plan.
Terrible.
So let's go through their plan. All right. So Mr. Orange stands outside the door and doesn't let anyone in or out. Mr. Brown waits in the car parked across the street, waiting for a signal. Mr. Blonde and Mr. Blue are on crowd control, and Mr. White and Mr. Pink. I'm sorry, it was 6 characters, not 5. I don't know why I kept saying 5 earlier. It's 6, and I should have known that. Well, I did know that. Where was I? Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue on crowd. Oh yeah, and Mr. White and Mr. Pink take the manager to the back and get the diamonds. They're there for the diamonds only. The diamonds only, nothing else. 2-minute job, not 1 second longer. We never find out how much the heist is worth, how much the diamonds are worth. It's not irrelevant. It's not important to the plot. I wouldn't even go as far as to say that the diamonds are MacGuffin because they're really not.
And they don't tell you the price, so like.
It doesn't matter. This movie's not about that. It's not that's exactly. So the plan goes to hell in a handbasket. Because evidently Mr. Blonde gets trigger happy.
Mr. Brown died.
I said Mr. Blonde gets trigger happy.
Oh,
yeah.
Mr. Brown died.
We see Brown die.
We did?
Later on in the film. Yeah, because remember, he's got the blood on his forehead, and then he crashes, and then he just dies behind the wheel.
You barely see him. He's like in a scene.
Because he keeps on saying he can't see, and White's like, 'cause you got blood in your eyes, because the blood's going down his head, and then he ends up dying from the wound. But
back
so
to Mr. Blonde.
Blonde just starts going crazy. I think they said he shoots like 3 or 4 people. And then in his defense, he says that they were going for the alarm. Don't do that. You don't get killed. Yada, yada. That you got Pink, White, kind of on the same side with the story. Because White, is telling Eddie what happened. And then, he's like, that's what happened. Ain't that right, Mr. Pink? And, he's like, well, it started like that, but now you guys talking, it's starting to make more sense. Irrational, yada, yada. But, and anyway, so that, and then somehow Pink ends up going with the diamonds instead. Because, again, you don't see these things happen. I mean, you see, the aftermath, which I think is pretty clever.
They talked about it.
The
that
heist
White
is what's
and
important.
Pink were both supposed to get the diamonds. So
Yeah.
one of them were, and Pink got it.
Because, again, Reservoir Dogs is not a movie about a bank heist. Or a heist at all. It's not a bank. It's a diamond store. It's not about that, even though it's telling the viewer, hey, check out this new, heist movie from this new up-and-coming filmmaker. And you go to watch it, and first thing you see is this dining scene. They're talking about Madonna's like a virgin. And then next thing you know, you get the credits to Little Green Bag, which is cool as shit. Don't get me wrong. And then next thing you know, Orange is in the back seat bleeding like a stuffed pig, dying, crying his guts out. And it's like, what happened?
The first scene, you would expect them to be like business people because they were all in suits and just talking, drinking coffee. It's like a criminal.
They're not going to the office. They're not going to their 9-to-5 desk job. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going somewhere to get money, but
I'm surprised
it ain't work.
The people let them out. They're like robbers, and people let them go in public, and they're no one calls the police. Nothing. It's like.
Well, the police are called. What do you mean? The police are called because
they'll just go out in public and people don't call the police. Because they were even at a dining.
You're losing me, kid. What do you mean?
Because they're at the diner, and next thing you know,
they're just a couple of guys in suits walking down the street that are a car. Why would that be suspicious? It's not like they have a big sign on the back saying, "Hey, we're the criminals. We're the bad guys." It's not like one of their license plates says, or whatever, a big note saying, off the rob a joint. Hey, the bad guys are over here. So yeah, Pink ends up stashing the diamonds and going back to the rendezvous with Joe. I mean, not Joe.
We're never told where the
White and
diamonds
Orange. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, cut to the end, which we're going to get to more in detail. Let's just jump to the next one. So, you know the movie, you know the story, you know how it goes out. The heist, whatever. It's like amateur hour. Tarantino's sense of time, okay? And this is kind of like, this ties in with the movie, but forgive me in advance, ahead of time, if I go off and just start talking about, like, his other films, like, you know them, like, like that, even though you've never seen them. I'm sorry. So, Quentin Tarantino. All right, so he structures his scripts in a unique way that shapes the story into something new and fresh. You're watching a Tarantino film when it suddenly begins with the dialogue-heavy scene set in the middle of the plot. As it was said in the film, you got to know all the details. That's how you follow the story of one of Quentin's movies. The details sell the story. This, it's kind of engaging. It's definitely unique. Mm-hmm. It's just, hey, it's kind of like, it's his way of saying, I'm this new guy. We've been seeing these movies with a beginning, middle, and end. This following the same structure for decades and decades, eons and eons, and I'm just gonna come in here, kick down the door, change the format, and see what happens. Well, let me tell you something. It paid off because speaking personally, because I was alive in the 90s and can remember these things, like, I was old enough to remember, even like in the earlier 90s, I remember certain things pretty well. This, because I was 8 when this came out, this movie, what followed this were years, and I'm telling you years. The 90s were just, the early to mid, somewhat late to late 90s were just flooded with like these Tarantino knockoffs, like movies that some of them tried to, you know, get all the young hip stars with, you know, and the writers amped up their dialogue to sound, to put in more references and to add a little bit more sizzle to the dialogue spoken itself, you know. And then you got the movies that are just messing with time, and it just like this movie does. There's no sense of structure, but they're only doing it just playing follow the leader, whereas Tarantino does it because it's always been his style and his way of telling a story. You know, he wants you to be engaged with the movie. He doesn't want you to sit there and just follow the same boring middle, you know, the same boring formula. He wants something different.
Time's everywhere in this movie, basically.
And it's not just this. It's not just this movie. I mean, Pulp Fiction, his next film, because that was the movie that really put him on the map. This movie did, but Pulp Fiction just transcended, just shot him out up into the sky with just, I mean, they got nominations at the Academy Awards that year. It was on a lot of top 10 lists at the for critics. It was just, if this movie was an introduction, then Pulp Fiction was a celebration. That's how it is. Next up one here, I have the violence and realism. With the torture scene alone, you get a sense of pain as you're watching it play out. I mean, even the camera pans away as Marvin's ears being removed. You're supposed to be feeling the torture with him instead of just watching. You know, torture scenes themselves are played out a dime a dozen. This is a particular scene where he wants you to engage with it and feel it, you know, because I do. This scene, and certainly the scene earlier with I keep saying Joe, with Orange in the back seat, bleeding out and crying out in pain. Like, I literally, to this day, since the first time I saw this movie ever, that I can literally, in a sense, feel the pain. I can feel the bullet wound in my belly. Like, I'm with Joe. Damn it, I keep saying Joe. Like, I'm there with Orange, and I can feel it as because he makes it. He's just so emotional, and Tim Roth just sells it so damn good. It's so convincing, and that I feel the pain with him. And you know, it's great. It's good stuff. You know. Speaking of, like, Orange, he's so hurt that he has to be held and cries out uncontrollably. He ends up passing out from the pain. Again, you're feeling his pain through his performance.
He's a good actor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. You know, and he's still, to this day, and he still pops up in Tarantino movies. You know, he's got a minor role in The Hateful Eight. He actually does have a role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it got cut. I do believe because a lot of stuff got cut because he filmed a lot of stuff in that movie. I think the Blu-ray has like an hour of deleted scenes. I don't know why they just don't have a special edition. I think down the road that's the game plan, because Hateful Eight had an extended edition on Netflix, and I think the game plan is down the road somewhat do the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
To make 10 movies and then done?
Yes. In fact,
This is
it's his ninth movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the poster itself has the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino. Apparently, he's got one left. We'll see how this plays out.
I remember when you first saw it because I was with you. I didn't see it with you, but me and Haley, you were with Joey.
Yeah, you and your friend went and saw all of, what was it? Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Me and her saw that alone.
Yes.
And you guys were down the hall watching.
And watching
this.
this.
And then ever since you've watched, who knows, how many times did you even go to the theater to see it?
I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 5 times in the theater last summer.
I could never.
Sick break! No, but in my defense, I did have an AMC reward or Stubbs card.
And you just
AMC
used it all on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That and Midsommar, and there's a couple of other movies that are big that I saw. Hey man, they were great films, and I didn't mind seeing them again. There were weeks where I didn't even use my 3 films, so why the hell not? Nothing else going on. The body count for this movie is 11. Again, getting back on track, we're talking about the violence of the film. I got a body count of 11. One would argue 12, but that's Mr. Blue, and you only hear about his death. You don't see it. Quentin's films are explicitly violent and always pushing the envelope for the mainstream audience. That's something that I came up with. I didn't take that from anything. That's just how I feel. He's always pushing it, and he'll get you to. It's like a mainstream. Not a gore fest. That's a boring term. I don't know, just blood and guts. Like, he just pushes it as much as he can. It's like a gritty, like grindhouse-esque movie, but for the mainstream audience. Even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you look at that poster. Go ahead, look at that poster of that. Does anything on that poster tell you this is going to be a violent movie?
There's a lot of guns and cars and.
Is there anything on that poster that tells you this is going to be one of the goriest films you'll ever see in the last 20 minutes alone? No. Exactly. One of these days you'll get to that movie, and yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I asked to see and you said no.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see mainly because Maya Hawke was in a scene, you said.
Yeah, Maya Hawke's in. No, she's in a couple scenes. She's got she's in 1 scene, 2 scenes.
You said she was.
I think she's in 2 scenes, Maya Hawke, and then she plays a kind of a big role at the end of the movie, and in the third act, the final act.
That's really the only reason I want to see it, because I'm a fan of Maya Hawke. But
me too. But
yeah,
if you're going just for her, you're gonna be disappointed because she's only in it for like 10 minutes total. Yeah. So the final thing to talk about. No, I'm sorry. The penultimate thing to talk about, the ending. Who the hell shot Nice Guy Eddie?
I don't know his name. I don't pay attention to real actors.
No, it's okay. So this ending, it ends with, if you're listening to this, you know the ending. You know the Mexican standoff. You've got Orange on the ground. You've got Joe accusing him of being a rat, which he's right, but he's still on the ground dying and denying it. So you've got Joe pointing the gun at Orange. You've got Orange using his gun to pretty much hold himself up because he's just so weak at that point. You've got White pointing his gun at Joe. You've got Eddie pointing his gun at White, saying, "Don't you point that gun at my dad." And then you've got Pink just hiding because he knows some serious crap's about to go down, and he just wants no part of it because he's smart and he doesn't have a personal grudge like the rest of these guys do. So
it ends with how it looks. Joe shoots Orange, White shoots Joe, and Eddie shoots White.
Yeah.
But White gets hit, and Eddie gets hit, and Eddie goes down too. But who the hell shot him? Who shot nice guy Eddie? This is probably going to be a question that'll be asked for the rest of time, and this kind of goes into the Kubrick episode when I mentioned a million times that Kubrick likes to mess with his audience intentionally. I think that this is Tarantino pulling a Kubrick.
And you think
Or
Pink, Mr. Pink, and I can see how it could be Mr. Pink, because he was hiding behind the steps or whatever it was.
But you don't see him shoot.
Yeah, but he
no gun.
could have out of nowhere.
No, because they show that scene I watched for him, and that he's back. He's cowered in the background. He's not aiming his gun at no one. He just wants to wait for them to do their thing so he can get out of there because he knows where the diamonds are.
Mm-hmm.
Or does he have them by then?
What?
Never mind. No. So what really happened though is the story is Chris Penn had a squib inside of him. A squib, for those who are not listening who don't know what that is, a squib is old school practical effects. You just put like inside of your shirt, like basically like something that goes off, like a little mini explosive or something that just supposed to just go off, and a bag explodes and it's full of fake blood. So it looks like you got shot. It looks like a gunshot wound. So Chris Penn had squibs in, and for reasons I don't understand, because the scene doesn't call for him to get shot.
Him on him?
But it ends up malfunctioning. The squib goes off. Chris Penn, being the actor that he is, goes with it, pretends he gets hit, and falls to the ground. Tarantino says cut. People are looking around, I guess. I can only imagine people looking around like, huh?
Like,
What the hell happened?
How did he die?
But Tarantino just kept it in. That's the story. That's the folklore.
I mean, because if he stayed up there, it'll be like, wait, how is he bleeding all of a sudden? Like, so it would make sense if he just fell.
Exactly. I got one more question, and then we'll get to the last part, the talking point. What do you think happened to Mr. Pink?
Like,
What do you think happens to Mr. Pink?
After he ran and got
Movie
away?
ends. If you can see Mr. Pink continue carry on, where is he going next after he leaves the warehouse?
I feel like...
Do you think the cops get him, or what?
No,
because the cops are coming.
You can tell he's a smart person. I feel like he probably, like... I guess you could say left wherever they were. And maybe he made his own little group.
I'd like to think that Mr. Pink made it. Went, cashed in that diamonds.
I mean, he was gone.
Collected a pretty hefty payday. Went down to
get the diamonds.
Went down to
get the diamonds.
Yeah, the Bahamas.
He paid to go somewhere because he must have got a lot of money.
Or maybe he bought an island. I don't know. And
he's rich.
Lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Maybe he made his own group. He got away. He's not where they used to be.
Yeah, Mr. Pink's he's the new Joe. Now Mr. Pink gets to pick the colors. He gets to do the pinking, the picking.
The pinking.
I dubbed this incident the pinking. Alright. So the last thing I want to talk about regarding this movie is the dialogue. Alright. I've been watching a lot of movies. I've seen a lot of really good writers. And no disrespect to any of them. And I'm not going to cancel them out. There's like a class of people from this time. Kevin Smith comes to mind. Definitely Tarantino. They just had smart, witty dialogue that was just fun to listen to, I guess, in a sense.
They all had their own story in the movie. It's like...
Yeah, and
everything was happening, and like you find it's like the past. They show the past of what's going on. They all have their own story of what happened when they were robbing the bank.
Yeah.
Because they all went different directions. They were all on different. Because they all had different
Well, that's what
jobs.
happens. You're not gonna, after you pull off a heist, you're not gonna all run together. You want to split up, you know.
I mean, it makes sense to split up unless you're stupid like that and just.
But he uses the dialogue to take you through his films without ever belittling you, like, or making you like feel stupid. Because there's a lot of movies, like, one of my pet peeves in movies is, like, when you have a narrator talking for the... I think I mentioned this in another episode. I hate it with movies when, like, the character, all of a sudden, there's a narration that pops up that is, like, just telling you, explaining to you what's happening instead of just letting you watch the movie and think for yourself or see things for yourself. Like, you don't always have to spell it out for us, you know? And that's not what he's doing here. He's using it in his own just sensible way. Like, hey, I love it. So always using big words, making casual pop culture references, clever lines like, you're acting like a first-time thief, I'm acting like a professional. Chime in anytime, kiddo. Cause I know you have something to say about his dialogue, and cause we talked about this off the air, off camera. I mean, for God's sakes, even Freddy's assigned a 4-page dialogue about a commode.
He had the longest story, like longest past. I feel like.
Would you be able to ever memorize a 4-page monologue about a commode? It's literally a 4-page joke.
It's a 4-page. I mean,
it's like a 5-minute joke, or a 4-minute joke, if you're going by the old Hollywood screenplay, or one script equals, or 1 page is 1 minute in a movie. In this case, a commode story. 4 minutes. It's one detailed commode story, and knowing, yeah, I can see that. Would you ever? I mean, that's his job.
I mean, unless you're a theater kid, maybe. But
I don't see Freddie taking theater class.
Exactly.
I mean, I think he even makes a point that he didn't take theater, or maybe he did.
He died.
He did. Maybe I made that part up.
He wouldn't be able to because he died now, but. He's dead. He can't do anything now.
Mr. Orange.
But
gone but never forgotten. 28 years later, we're still talking about him on this podcast. Okay. So let's do the... Who's your MVP of the film?
Mr. Pink and Freddy. Both. Or if I had to pick one.
You gotta choose one.
I'd choose Freddy then. I feel like Mr. Pink stuck out to me the most just from his humor, but like, if you want to think, if I'm being all serious and not thinking about just the jokes, I'd say Freddy, because the movie, I wouldn't say it's about him, but like, he has the longest like story to tell. And
yeah, if this film had to center on one,
he's the undercover cop.
One could make the argument about Mr. White or Mr. Blonde.
I can
but
see
no.
that, but like,
definitely, if we're gonna center on one, if we had to, bet your ass on one from Mr. Orange.
Yeah. I mean, he's the undercover cop. Everyone else is in the heist. He's different than all the other people.
Oh, and for the record, he's my pick too. He's my MVP. My unbiased MVP pick of the film. Mr. Tim Roth, Mr. Orange himself. Freddy. When I talk about this movie, I never talk about their first names, like Larry or Freddy. And like, no.
I mean, they say the name, so it's like, why not?
What's your Be Kind, Rewind, rewatchable moment?
I feel like the thing that stuck out to me the most would be Mr. Pink and Mr. White fighting, so probably that I'd rewatch a lot. I don't see any other scene I really
Okay.
Rewatch. I don't know.
No, I mean, I picked the opening diner scene.
Mm-hmm.
I love that scene. It's pretty legendary. Always loved it. Do you have a doubleheader pairing?
No.
I didn't think so. And that's my fault. No, it's actually not.
I watch movies a lot, but I don't watch like movies like this a lot.
Yeah. Maybe doubleheader pairing should be like a me thing from now on.
At least for movies like this, almost.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll I'll make a note of that. So my doubleheader pairing is True Romance. And that being said, little sidebar, gonna tell you about how this film came to be. To my surprise, I didn't talk about that earlier. I thought I wrote that down. So again, Tarantino, first movie. He wrote initially 2 movies, Reservoir Dogs and True Romance. Now, he presented these two to filmmaker Tony Scott, who at the time already had a nice filmography under his belt in The Hunger, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Top Gun, just to name a few. Legend, yeah. Anywho, he said, no, that's his brother, Ridley, was Legend. He said to Tony, here are my scripts. Would you like to do one? Of course, Tony Scott, right on both, wanted to do Reservoir Dogs. So Tarantino's response was, okay, well, with all due respect, I kind of want to do that one myself for my debut movie. I kind of wanted to take the reins of that one. So why don't you do True Romance? And everyone wins. And that's basically how it went down. So he sold the script for True Romance to either Morgan Creek or Warner Brothers, who had Tony Scott direct from the screenplay written by Tarantino. That money that he made off of that deal went on to finance this film.
Now thinking about this is gonna make no sense, but I feel like after watching Reservoir Dogs, I'd watch Titanic.
Where the hell did you come up with that?
I just looked at the poster and I'm like, I'll watch both of those together. Why not?
So your doubleheader pairing, Reservoir Dogs and Titanic.
I'll watch both of those together. I don't mind.
You have fun with that. Let me know how that goes.
It makes no sense, but I'll watch it.
All right. Back on track. Okay. Star power. How many stars are you giving this out of 5?
A 3, maybe 3.5.
3, maybe 3.5.
Because it's a movie I'd rewatch again if I wanted to show it to somebody or somebody wanted to watch it with me. I'd watch it. I wouldn't mind.
It's nothing you put on casually,
I'd just
when
be
you're
like,
by
oh,
yourself.
I'm gonna watch this by myself, or I wouldn't make a suggestion.
There's never gonna be a Friday night where you're looking for something to watch. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, or if I'm with friends and we don't know what movie to watch, I'm not just gonna say, hey, why not Reservoir Dogs? You guys know what that is.
All right.
Yeah.
I respect that.
I'll rewatch it if someone says, hey, want to, and sure, but I wouldn't make the idea.
Right.
It wouldn't be the first thing that comes to mind, for sure.
All right, this has got 4 stars from me. 4 stars. 4 stars. 4 stars. 4 out of 5.
I mean, I like it. It feels like a short movie. It's 2 hours long, but after watching it, you're like, that went on quick. Are you sure it's not?
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half. Are you sure? There's also a 13-minute version, isn't there?
No, that was the making of.
Oh. I was like, wait.
There's not a condensed 13-minute version of Reservoir Dogs. Does not exist.
That would be really weird. And somehow
that would be the TV version of this film. So, next week's film, We're going to be taking it back 35 years ago. We're going to be hanging out with the Breakfast Club. How do you feel about that?
I know I've wanted to watch it. I've brung it up.
I was going to say, this is a movie you've actually requested personally. Like, not recently, but I know in the last handful of months you have said, I want to watch the Breakfast Club.
I think we were at, FYE or FYI. Wait, is it FYE?
FYE.
FYE.
FYI is something else.
FYE, I'm pretty sure I saw you looking at it, or I saw it, and I was like, why not watch it? It wasn't a movie where we'll be like, oh, we should watch it right now, but it was a movie like when it's time, we can watch it.
Well, next week it will be time, because next week we will be checking out the Breakfast Club
right
for your first time. For your first time. And with that being said, I want to remind everyone that they can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Breaker, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. We're on Facebook.com at maddadmoviereview, Instagram at maddadmoviereview, and Twitter at maddadmoviepod. You can also email us at maddadmoviereview@gmail.com, where you can send in any requests, any reviews, whatever you want to do with the email. It's there.
Even if I've seen it before, we can still always rewatch it.
Yeah.
We have the time, and yeah.
And if you're listening on Apple or iTunes, please, or anywhere that you're able to, if you can, leave us a 5-star rating. We would
you
greatly.
You could even email us a rating.
Just send the 5s, all right? Just keep the 5s coming, guys. 5s for us, guys. We'd appreciate it a lot. And with that being said,
I'm Matt.
And I'm Dad. And this has been Mad Dad Movie Review. All right, see you guys next week.